So yeah, new Pond album. I was not going to review this originally. It was not on my to-do list per se, but I have given it a few listens, and I do think it's worth talking about, so here we are. So if you're not familiar with Pond, they are a psych rock band based out of Australia. They have some very close ties with the band Tame Impala, and you can often tell. They have Kevin Parker on producer here, and once again, you can tell. There's some very heavy Currents vibes on here. You know, you can hear those heavy synths and those punchy drums. That's all Kevin Parker. And I've been a fan of Pond since Man It Feels Like Space Again, which I thought was a very solid collection of psych rock tunes. The same thing with The Weather. But I will say both those albums do have their fair share of filler. There are a couple songs on each album that I will skip. And that's where Tasmania comes in, because I do think that this is their most cohesive album to date and most consistent. And I'm not going to go track by track, because I have a feeling I'm going to start repeating myself a bit too much. But I do want to talk about some of my favorite tracks on here, starting with Daisy. Now, Daisy has become very quickly one of my favorite Pond songs, because it plays into all of their strengths. It's interestingly structured, and Pond knows how to do soft and atmospheric, and they know how to do punchy and energetic, and you get the best of both worlds here. The opening is just these light, soft strings. You get some beautiful imagery in the lyrics. Nick Albrook is killing it on the vocals and the melodies. And then the beat comes in, and it's just an absolute groove. It's by far the catchiest thing on this album. And the chorus is excellent. I love when those 80s glam pop synths come in, and you know they're Kevin Parker's doing, because they sound like they're straight off of Currents, and I just love it. And the outro, the strings come back in, and just for a moment, the beat comes in over the strings, and it's just excellent. So, that's a perfect 10 for me. And speaking of perfect 10s, The Boys Are Killing Me is an absolute groove, and I don't think I have a lot to say other than that. Just the bass line is so thick and well done, and the melody on the verse and chorus are just perfectly constructed, and the synths on that chorus are just so interesting sounding, and when the punchy drums come in at some points, it just all blends together so very well. And then you have Tasmania, which, this is why I'm not going track by track, because what do I have to say about Tasmania? The bass line is solid, the synths are solid, the melodies are solid, it all flows together beautifully. And I like the inclusion of the glockenspiel. But this is also where you get to see some of the themes on this album, most specifically here, where they talk about global warming and how Tasmania is the only inhabitable place in the near future. And it's not like they have an agenda or anything, but just like on The Weather, they do provide commentary on certain social issues. And I do encourage that, because they do tackle these issues in an interesting way, just like they did here. And then Hand Mouth Dancer is this song with a grand epic chorus where the synths sort of just rise and intensify along with the vocals. And once again, you hear those sort of political issues being talked on, or at least the lack of action being taken in such political issues. They talk about how the average citizen can really only talk and do their hand and mouth dance, while there's people actually dying to make change. And so once again, there's some impactful stuff there. And then Burnt Out Star, I'm not going to dwell on too long. It's kind of just here because it does the same thing for me that Daisy does, where it just sort of lacks form, and the song kind of just ebbs and flows where it wants, and it ends on some great punchy drum lines that sort of represent the climax of the song, and it all just blends together very well. And with that, I think I've said what I've wanted to say. The other 5 songs on here, I'm not going to talk about, because like I said, I'm just going to start bringing up the same things, because the fact of the matter is that this is a very consistent album that uses a lot of the same sounds to make unique songs, and I like that. Because sometimes when you try to do that, where you use the same sounds to make a consistent album, instead of consistency, you just get something that sounds very samey, and it gets boring after a while. This is not the case. They were very successful in what they were trying to do here. And for the other 5 songs, I'd say they're all in that 7 to 8 out of 10 range, and the only low point would probably be Shame, which is like a slow ballad type song, which is not bad, but I think it overdoes its stay for me. I'm kind of over it after 2 minutes, and I'm ready for the next song, but it goes on for like another 2 minutes. But other than that, it's a very solid album. It might be my favorite Pond album at this point. It's definitely an 8 out of 10 for me. And with that being said, I am now moving on to bonus review, which is something I just made up now because I want to accommodate this comment I got for me to review Phantoms by Marianas Trench. Now, I had never heard of Marianas Trench before, so I went ahead, I listened to Astoria, and I thought that album was pretty great. I think it does 80s glam pop very well. It's a solid concept album. And here, on this new album, we got another concept. This album was apparently inspired by the works of Edgar Allan Poe, so it's supposed to be kind of haunting, a little spooky in tone and sound. And there are a few instances where they do get that across pretty well, like on the opener, Eleonora, the very outro of Echoes of You, they kind of get that sound across. And on the closer here, The Killing Kind, which is by far the best song on this album. But I do think that there are a lot of instances here where that sound and the 80s glam pop that I heard on Astoria get very watered down by this very by the numbers production. It seems like they're pulling a little too much from mainstream pop. I get a lot of flashes of Shawn Mendes and Ed Sheeran on this thing. You know, you get the very stereotypical mid-tempo acoustic songs where you get the snaps in there and the millennial whoops, and there's some trap sprinkled in there. And all of that just really does not do much for me. I will say, however, Josh Ramsey is amazing on vocals. He hits those falsettos very well. But yeah, the production kind of just kills the concept for me. And you know, it's a very safe and generic album. It's not bad. It's safe and generic. I give it a 5 out of 10. So that concludes this video. If you have any strong thoughts about either album, I openly invite your opinion down below. If you have any suggestions in terms of albums for the future, also comment those. If I don't actually review it, I will tack it on to the end of a video, just like I did here. And then also coming up, I'm reviewing the new Cage the Elephant album on April 19th. So if you want to see that, then subscribe and stick around. Otherwise, that about does it.